Hey everybody, this video brings us out to Doylestown, Pennsylvania, here at Our Lady of Czestochowa, if I'm saying that correctly, church slash cemetery slash rosary garden slash amazing statues. This place is really cool. It's huge, it's gigantic. The grounds are quite sprawling. There is a lot to see here. The very impressive, gigantic Polish church. I would love to go inside there someday. Is really impressive looking. We've actually been out here once before to take a look at a statue right over there. That statue right there of Ronald Reagan holding the invisible pancake. If you guys have not seen that video, you should check that out. Really interesting, weird, bizarre, kind of incomplete statue. I did a whole video on that, explaining why exactly that statue is the way it is, why it is incomplete, and why he's not holding a pancake, why he should be holding a pancake, but why he's not actually holding a pancake. You should definitely check that video out. But again, this place is huge. It is gigantic. There is so much to see here. And today, the reason why we are here today is to go into the cemetery and check something out that's really interesting. Here's the Rosary Garden. We're gonna skip that today. But like I said, we are heading into the cemetery to check out something really cool, a really interesting, unique piece of history, really interesting, unique story. I love the weird, I love the bizarre, and there's a very bizarre story that resides right here in this cemetery. Now, with that being said, we do actually have to find the grave, the grave. I'll explain that in a second as well. But we do have to find the grave, which I'm thinking should not be too difficult. The statue should stand out. The grave should stand out. It's very unique looking, but it is within the cemetery somewhere. Again, this very impressive cemetery. Look at that statue over there. This cemetery is big. Again, it is impressive, but I think we should be able to find the grave fairly easy. So the grave we're out here to find today is that of Ignacy Paderewski, if I'm saying that name correctly. I do apologize if I am saying that wrong. I myself am not Polish, so if I am not pronouncing that 100% accurately, I do apologize. My apologies for that. But that is the grave we are out here to find today. And I do believe I have actually found it. Very easy to find. When you first walk through the gates, look over to your left, and he's right over here between these bushes. This is the grave we are looking for. Ignacy Paderewski, again, if I'm saying that name correctly. So what makes this grave so interesting is that it's not necessarily a grave. So back in 1941, suddenly in New York, this very famous Polish composer passed away. His wishes were to either be buried in Paris or to be buried in Poland. And if you know your history, in 1941, that was not going to be possible. Both Poland and France were occupied by the Nazis, so clearly his body was not going to be transported and buried in either of those countries. He was kind of stuck here in the United States. So what happened was Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the president, he actually had his body, for whatever reason, I could not actually find out why exactly, but apparently his body was placed in the USS Maine Memorial in Arlington National Cemetery, Why that's where his body was placed, I don't know, but it sat there for a while. Sat there until 1991, because obviously once the war was over, Paris was no longer occupied by Nazi Germany, so his body could have been buried in Paris as per his wishes, but his family said, no, we don't really want his body in Paris. We'd much rather have his body in Poland. Well, unfortunately, after the war, that was also not going to happen because the USSR occupied Poland, that area of Poland, so that was not going to happen. He was not going to be buried in Poland quite yet. But in 1991, when the Berlin Wall fell and Poland was free once again, his body was actually able to be taken there. So they had him cremated and his body was buried in Poland as per his wishes, as per his family's wishes. However, this is where the story gets interesting, and this is the reason why I wanted to bring you guys out here today to see this, because not all of him was cremated and buried in Poland. Apparently, he loved the United States so much that his family decided to leave his heart here in Pennsylvania. So his heart was removed from his body before cremation and placed right here. So this is where also the story gets a bit even more interesting. From what I was reading, his heart was not placed in the ground. His heart's not here in a box buried beneath the statue, beneath the headstone. From what I was reading, his heart was actually placed inside the bronze bust. So right inside here is where his heart resides, from what I was reading. So again, really, really interesting, bizarre story of this famous Polish composer who passed away, wanted to be buried either in Paris or buried in Poland, not able to do that due to the war that was going on and those darn Nazis. But after the war, his family went, no, we don't want him in Paris, we want him in Poland, but that still wasn't possible. So they waited until the Berlin Wall fell, Poland was free, and his body could be buried in Poland. But again, he loved the United States so much that they left his heart not in San Francisco, he left his heart here in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, at this very famous Polish church. So pretty awesome to think that right inside here is the heart of this man who loved the United States so much. His family decided this is where his heart should stay. So I'm not really familiar with Polish traditions. If you are, by all means, leave a comment down below. But I have been noticing all these very unique, interesting, very decorative candles left on many graves out here. Not just this grave, but pretty much every grave out here has some of these very, very decorative candles that kind of look just like this. Now, I've been to many cemeteries, of course, and I've seen many candles left on many graves, but not really ones that are quite this decorative, ones that look like this. And the fact that there are a bunch of candles that look just like that on a bunch of other graves, I'm guessing that must symbolize something. That must be some kind of tradition. Again, if you know, leave your comments down below. Those are really, really interesting, though. I believe this here is one of his songs, if I'm not mistaken, one of the songs he composed. Unfortunately, I am not able to read this as it's not in English. I believe it says, well, let me try here. Sweetia Prawa Oljasinski Nas Wazewa. That wasn't even close, was it? If I even came close to getting that correct, by all means, leave a comment down below. But I guarantee you, not a single word there was pronounced correctly. I have no idea what that says. But again, I am assuming that is one of his songs that he composed. Now, again, why he's buried here in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, I'm not 100% sure. I did look up online to see where he resided here in the United States when he was living here. Apparently, he resided in New York, where he passed away, and he resided in California as well. But I see nothing about him residing here in Pennsylvania. So the fact that he's actually buried here in Doylestown, Pennsylvania is quite unique and quite interesting. Not to mention the fact that his heart is encased in a bronze bust of the man. That's also very interesting and also very unique. I know this is somewhat of a famous Polish church. I mean, it is, again, it's got this big, gigantic cemetery. It's got the huge church. They do all kinds of Polish festivals out here. This is a very popular church for the Polish community. So I'm guessing that's the whole reason why, but it just makes you think. He could have been buried anywhere. He could have been buried in California. Actually, it would have made a lot more sense, in my opinion, for his heart to be have left in California, where he resided for such a long time. But no, it's here in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Again, weird and bizarre, but again, really, really awesome. So after reading up a little bit more on Paderewski, apparently his second wife and his son are buried in Paris, which is why he had wished to possibly either be buried in Paris or to be buried in Poland. Now, what I cannot find information on is why exactly his family, his living family, said, no, we don't want him buried in Paris. We do not want him buried next to his second wife and his son. We want him buried in Poland, which really doesn't make a lot of sense, because I would personally, if I hate to think about it, but if my wife and son were to pass away, I would want to be buried next to them. That would be my wishes. I would probably prefer to be buried next to them, which could have happened during the end of World War II. In the 1940s, his body, his cremated remains, whatever, could have been buried in Paris, France, after the fall of Nazi Germany, after France was no longer occupied by the Nazis. At the end of World War II, his body could have finally been laid to rest permanently in Paris next to his second wife and his son. But again, his family decided against that. They did not like that idea. They wanted to wait until his body could be buried in Poland, which took until 1991 with the fall of communism in Poland. They had to wait for the fall of communism into the 90s. All those decades later, they had to wait for his body to finally, his cremated remains, to finally be laid to rest in Poland. Again, why they decided upon that, I have no idea. But I guess for us, for those of us who love the weird and the bizarre and the unique, maybe it was a good thing, because who knows if his heart would have been left here in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Probably not. Back in the 1940s, they probably would have... Those birds are going crazy. In the 1940s, they probably would have just taken his remains. They would have shipped them off to Paris. They would have buried him, and that would have been that. His body, his entire body, including his heart, would probably be in Paris next to his second wife and his son right now, which kind of, I think, is maybe where his body should, or his remains at least, should be buried, in my personal opinion. But again, had that happened in 1991, I believe it was like 92 actually, when his body was finally moved. In 1992, I don't think they would have thought to have taken out his heart, left it here, and to leave it here in the United States, and to encase it in a bronze bust right here. I don't think they would have done that. That probably would have been not of something that would have happened. So even though, again, I do still think that it was kind of weird for his family to be against him being buried next to his second wife and his son in Paris. They'd rather have seen his body in Poland, which again, I understand. He was a very famous Polish composer. That's where he was born. He actually left Poland, I believe, at the beginning of I think it was World War I, if I'm not mistaken, is when he decided to leave Poland and to come to the United States. But why his family decided, again, not to let him be buried next to his family, I am not sure. I mean, yes, it's always nice to have somebody famous from your country be buried in your actual country. I get it. But at the same time, I don't know. But anyway, had that happened, would his heart be right here in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, right inside that head right there? No, probably not. So again, I will say this is a very, very beautiful cemetery. And if his heart was to be left here in the United States, which it was, this does seem like a very, very fitting place. You get a very popular, very amazing, very beautiful Polish church with a very beautiful, amazing cemetery full of all kinds of really interesting and unique statues and memorials. I believe that is a statue over there dedicated to the president of Poland who died in a plane crash. There are like war monuments. I believe that over there, the cross, the crucifix, is for a 9/11 memorial. There's a really interesting statue back there as well, I think featuring like Jesus rising up with an angel below him. All kinds of really interesting, unique structures and unique monuments and all kinds of interesting statues and whatnot. There's a really cool church, an old wooden church down there with a really interesting like wooden bell steeple next to it, which is really cool. Again, all kinds of cool stuff. Really interesting place to be buried. So it is at least fitting for such a famous composer's heart. Again, if being left in the United States, which it was, to be left here. It seems fitting. It seems like a good place for one's heart to be left. If my heart was to be left somewhere in the United States, if I was a famous Polish anybody, and they said, you know what, he loved the United States so much, we're gonna leave his heart here in the US, I guess this would be a fitting place. Again, maybe somewhere in California where he resided for so long, maybe would have made a little bit more sense, but I don't know. It is kind of fitting. It's such a weird, bizarre story of why he is even here in the first place. So there's a lot of weirdness around this story. A lot of just kind of like why and who knows, and just a lot of questions that remain when it comes to why this is even a thing. Why he wasn't buried in Paris at the end of World War II. Why they decided to leave his heart here in the United States. Again, I know because he loved the United States, but why they left it here in Doylestown in Pennsylvania, where, from what I can gather, he never resided or had any real connection with. I could be wrong about that, but from what I was reading, I did not read anything about Pennsylvania in his biography anywhere. So who knows? Again, lots of ifs and whys and what's going on, and just all kinds of questions that arise. But at the same time, who cares? Because it's so cool that his heart is right here, right inside this bronze bust, right? Hear that's hollow. If I hear knocking back, I'm gonna run. But right inside there is the heart of this famous Polish composer, not buried in the ground, not placed in a box right there, but instead encased in bronze. Such a weird, bizarre, unique, interesting story here in Pennsylvania, in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Pretty awesome. I just had to come out here and I just had to check this out. All right, guys, so that is going to do it for the very weird, very bizarre, very strange story of Ignacy Paderewski. If I am pronouncing that name correctly, I am probably not, but that is going to do it, because as I've been out here filming, I have noticed a lot of families showing up to pay their respects to loved ones, and I do not want to be the weird guy in this cemetery freaking out over a heart encased inside a bronze bust, but I am that weird guy freaking out over a heart encased inside a bronze bust. I love these kinds of stories. But all right, guys, with that, I am going to let you go. So as always, thank you all so much for checking out this video. Be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, check down below for links to Patreon. If you guys do become a patron, I will send you a postcard every single month from the road. Also check down below for a link to Spreadshirt, where you can grab yourself retro rest stop t-shirts. Proceeds both from Spreadshirt and from Patreon do help support the show, and they do keep the show going. It brings us out to awesome and interesting and unique places like this. So I really do appreciate the help and appreciate the support. But all right, if you guys watch this video all the way until the very end, hashtag, okay, so some people, they leave their hearts in San Francisco, but not Paderewski here. He left his heart, well, his family left his heart here in the United States. So let's say hashtag, I left my heart in the United States. If you guys watch this video all the way until the very end, because right here, and inside this bronze bust is encased the heart of this famous Polish composer, painter, statesman, Ignacy Paderewski, if I'm saying that name correctly, buried, well, not buried, his heart, not even buried, again, his heart, not buried right here, his heart encased right there, his heart right here in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, inside that bust right there. Crazy story. But all right, guys, again, with that, I am going to let you go. So if you guys have ever been out here, leave your comments down below. If you're a fan of the music, maybe you've been to his family's grave, his second wife and his son's grave out in Paris. Maybe you've been to his grave in Poland. Leave your comments down below. I want to hear your stories about this very famous Polish composer here. Well, his heart here. I keep having to remind myself, he's not buried here. His heart isn't even buried here. It's just his heart is here, inside there. Crazy. So anyway, if you guys have any stories, leave your comments down below. But all right, guys, again, that's going to do it. So like I said, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And if you do hit that subscribe button or you are subscribed, then I will see you guys in the next video. Pretty awesome. Get out here. Check this out. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one. Bye. Okay, so before we leave, there is still one more thing I have to check out. One thing that I've been really curious about the entire time I've been here is this place so popular? Do so many people come out here to visit the cemetery, walk the grounds, see the statues, walk through the gardens, that they actually need public restrooms? Are these actually open? Can you come out here and use the restrooms at the church? I know it's a really weird thing to be wondering, but it's also kind of weird to see public restrooms like this at a church. I know this is a big area, big grounds, they have festivals, but I wonder, are these just for the festivals, or are they open at all times for people to use? Please keep the door closed. Oh my gosh. So a couple of them seem to be out of order, but my question has been answered. Yeah, this place is so popular. It's so big. There's so much to see here, and just so many people come out here throughout the year that they actually have public restrooms, and quite quiet public restrooms as well. All right, actually, you know what? Before I drive an hour back home, I'm gonna go take care of some business. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.